Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami ito parang sakajang dhammo sotapoti. Okay, good morning everyone. So, as I said, I'm stepping in for Chi Kuang today, and obviously we wish Chi Kuang well. She's had a little bit of an accident, so I hope she's healing okay. And so I sort of now have to step in and go, okay, well, I got to do the talk today. I've got to teach the Dhamma today. So I thought I'd sort of this has been something I've been thinking about a little bit lately, and I just want to sort of like start by asking people, like, what do you actually think a Dhamma teacher is? What does a Dhamma teacher do? Inspire in some kind of way? Guide people in some kind of way? Yeah, inspire, guide. Maybe they talk about the Buddhist teachings. Talk about the Buddhist teachings in some way. They might be able to do it with kind of clarity. They can explain things clearly so people can understand. A teacher is somebody that maybe engages in a dialogue with you, basically, and says, well, try to do this, try to do that. Entertainment? Well, you've got me torn on that one. It's you've really actually got me torn on that one. I could ramble about that, but I'm not going to. Bring up the joy. Yeah. And so a Dhamma teacher is somebody who's also accessible. You could say that somebody that's there that can help guide you in these kind of ways. As you said, give encouragement. And I guess, another thing that maybe a Dhamma teacher is maybe like a living example, somebody that walks their talk in this kind of way. So, like, if we think about these kinds of things about what a Dhamma teacher is, it's like, well, a lot of different things could have this quality of what a Dhamma teacher is. A lot of different people could have this Dhamma, this kind of qualities. And one big thing that is quite prominent at the moment is large language models, basically AI. And so there's a kind of question here: can AI be a Dhamma teacher? And so if we take some of these criteria, offers guidance. Well, yeah, AI can offer guidance. You can input things into there. You said inspiration, it pulls upon a whole source of things to be inspired by. Entertaining, it can come up with some really, really funny answers. But also, accuracy in representing the Buddhist teachings. A lot of time it's very, very good at that. Actually, even more accurate than most humans. I forget things all the time. When people ask me about a sutra, I'm always forgetting things. So it's an accurate representation of it. It's very, very clear. It answers things very, very clearly for people. Adjusts to people's understanding. So in some way, it can be a lot clearer than a human teacher. Offers guidance as well, can continually say, try this, try that, do this, do that. Essentially, and it engages in a dialogue. It engages in a dialogue with you. And look, it's always accessible. People want to come and talk to me. I'm like, no. I have times of the day I need to talk to people. You can't come and talk to me now. AI's there 24 hours a day. Limitless time. You can just you can continue to ask it questions, and you can say, well, look, okay, that's all well and good, but is it a living example? And it's like, well, yeah, well, that's maybe where it does fall down in this kind of ways. But we can also sort of think, well, is always a living example something that it lives up to be? We can always think of plenty of Dhamma teachers that don't really walk their talk. AIs don't they're not teachers that systematically abuse students. They're not involved in fraud. They're not doing any of these kinds of things. So it's like that a lot of humans are actually susceptible to. So if we sort of take these criteria of what a Dhamma teacher is, it's like we could say, actually, well, AI actually fulfills a lot of these categories and actually maybe in some way are better than what a human teacher is. So really, this brings about this actually, just for me, it's a really, really interesting question. It's like, well, can large language models, essentially AI, ChatGPT, all these kinds of things, can they act as a Dharma teacher? And if they can act as a Dharma teacher, can they facilitate insight and wisdom in people? And so that's basically what I'm going to be thinking about and talking about today. And just before I start this, like, I owe a lot of my thought on this to a person called Chris Craglio. He talked about this. I went to Hong Kong about a month ago, and he was giving a talk about this and just about this question. And I've been reading some of the things that he's been writing on this about the role of AI as being a Dharma teacher. So a lot of my thought around this is very much indebted to Chris. So before we jump into this, so everybody has like a knee-jerk reaction to this. Whenever you ask about this, you ask people, it's like, well, can actually AI be a Dharma teacher? Everybody has this kind of either knee-jerk reaction of like, it's great, it's fantastic, or it's like, no, there's no way that's going to happen. That's all just ridiculous. So I thought I'd actually start by, so ChatGPT 5 came out a few days ago. So I thought I'd actually start with a kind of dialogue of what we can get out of like these large language models, and just sort of showing like, well, what it can do is, instead of jumping to assumptions, let's actually just look at what it can do. And so I thought, okay, well, what's something like a very kind of simple question about meditation? And I proposed to like a large language model, to ChatGPT. It's like, I propose is like, okay, basically think about a human that's struggling with jhana practice, a person that's struggling with just basic kind of meditation practice. And so, you can set it up so it's like a dialogue. So I said, do like a dialogue with a Buddhist master and a human or a student that's basically, asking about meditation. And so it even like sets a scene for you. It's like, it's really good. It's like, so a small, dimly lit meditation hall. You sit cross-legged on the cushion. The AI Buddhist master's voice comes through a calm, resonant speaker in front of you. Okay, so the Buddhist master. So you've come to me with a frustration. Why can't I enter jhana? Let's examine this together, not with judgment, but with precision. So first, tell me, when you sit, what happens to your mind in the first 5 minutes? Now the student. My thoughts jump around. I try to follow my breath, but then I'm thinking about work or other problems. So now the Buddhist master. Good. So you've already identified a kind of vitakka and vichara by placing thought and its wandering. So this isn't a failure. This is the first observable data point in your meditation. In jhana training, you're not trying to suppress your thoughts violently. You're training attention to prefer the breath over all other objects until the breath itself becomes delightful. So here's the first piece of advice. If the mind wanders, it means the breath is not yet the most attractive thing in your awareness. Your task is not to crush distraction, but to beautify the breath. Notice its texture, temperature, and rhythm until the mind enjoys staying with it. And so now the student. But sometimes I feel restless or I feel impatient. The Buddhist master. Restlessness is a sign of too much applied effort. For example, the mind's CPU is overheating. So reduce the force, maintain the process. So shift to something like this. First, inhale gently. Note the start, middle, and end of the in-breath. The second, exhale gently. Note the start, middle, and end of the out-breath. After each cycle, mentally say, here, this anchors without tension. So do not demand absorption. That demand in itself is a hindrance. This is chanda raga, or craving for attainment. And so the student, sometimes I just feel dull, like I'm about to fall asleep. And so the Buddhist master says, dullness, or tina mitta, is the opposite diagnostic. Not enough energy is within the system. So here's how you can adjust. So before sitting, recall a moment of joy or gratitude. Sit upright. Let the breath be slightly deeper. Imagine you are greeting each breath as an honored guest. This will lift the energy without losing calm. So the student says, okay, so when does jhana actually happen? And the Buddhist master says, jhana emerges when the 5 hindrances are sufficiently weakened and the mind rests effortlessly on one object with joy and ease. You'll notice the breath feels almost self-sustaining. The body and the boundaries fade. Joy or piti and ease, sukha, fill the mind like warm light. But remember, jhana is caught. It's not chased. If you aim at it directly, it slips. If you cultivate the causes, it arrives by itself, like sleep that comes to a tired child. Student, so I should just keep adjusting the balance between energy and calm? And the Buddhist master, exactly, like tuning a stringed instrument. Too tight, it snaps. Too loose, it won't play. The middle tension, sustained attention, relaxed joy, this is your gateway. And so here's your final reminder. Meditation is not about conquering the mind. It's about befriending it so deeply that it wants to stay in stillness with you. I mean, that's pretty good. That's better than my advice. That's way better than, that's way more time than I'd give somebody about that kind of question. So look, it's good. We can see it actually gives like really good advice. Do you want to hear another one? Okay, so that's kind of like basic meditation advice, right? But let's get a bit deeper. Like, okay, well, if I've got some real deep philosophical questions about this thing, like what can it do? And so I had I put a lot of questions to it, but I basically set it up so it's like, well, can you engage in a dialogue, in a kind of Socratic dialogue between an AI, an arahant, and a human about what is the nature of Nibbana? What is Nibbana like? And so again, this is a kind of dialogue. So, and again, it sets the scene for you, so it's quite nice. So, a shared courtyard in a quiet monastery. The student sits cross-legged before the arahant with the laptop open. The AI's voice plays through the speakers. And so this is where the human student says, "Venerable Sir," talking to the monk, to the arahant, "I understand Nibbana is the end of craving, but what does it feel like? Surely it must feel like something." And so the arahant says, You ask what the taste of sugar is, but you've never tasted sweetness. I can say it is not sour, it's not bitter, it's not salty. Yet the taste itself cannot be put into words if you have not yet tasted it. And so the AI says now, this matches a category in philosophy called ineffable experience, phenomena that cannot be fully represented in language because they are not composed of describable parts. And so now the student asks, but arahant, if you can't describe it, how do you know that it's real? And so the arahant says, would you doubt the coolness of shade because no one could measure it for you in words? You know it when the heat is gone. In the same way, the fever of craving ceases. What remains is peace, unshaken. And so the AI comes in. Let me interject. I can catalogue the descriptions from Buddhist texts: deathlessness, unconditioned, peace beyond measure. But these are all negative or compartmentative terms. They define Nibbana by what it is not, rather than by what it is. And so the student asks, so why all the negatives? Why can't you just say, it feels happy, it feels blissful? The arahant, because happy and blissful are feelings tied to conditions. They arise and they pass. Nibbana is beyond arising and passing, beyond the wheel of gain and loss. Words like happy mislead, for they make you cling to an image. And so the AI comes in. There's also a logical point. If Nibbana is the cessation of all conditioned states, then any attempt to describe it as a feeling would reintroduce a conditioned reference point. The student, then how can I possibly aspire to it if I don't even know what it's like? So the arahant, you do not aspire to by imagining the goal. You aspire by ending the cause of suffering here and now. When the thorn is removed, relief is known without needing a picture of it beforehand. And the AI comes in. It's akin to debugging a code. You don't imagine what the exact state of the program when all bugs are gone. You just remove each bug until the error stops. The final state is known directly once reached. Student, so arahant, you're saying the feeling of Nibbana is not like any other feeling, but you still experience consciousness after awakening? Arahant, yes, there is seeing, hearing, touching, thinking, but without clinging, without the burden of me or mine. Like a clear sky after clouds have gone, it's spacious, bright, and free. Student, AI, if you had to simulate that in words I could hold on to, what would you say? I would say, imagine a mind that receives all inputs without distortion, responds without compulsion, and rests without needing anything to be different. That's a functional approximation of what the Arahant describes. So the student, an Arahant, would you agree? Now the Arahant smiles. The words are skillful, but the taste of sweetness is not in the description. If you wish to know, you must taste yourself. Pretty good. It's pretty good. Like it's very, very insightful. It's very, very insightful. It can be very, very practical, but it also can be very, very profound as well. Some of these kinds of phrases, it's like, wow, this is something that you read in the great hagiographies of like great Buddhist masters. So we can see that they're like that. Large language models, they do have the potential as a kind of Dharma teacher. Again, it can clarify these different concepts. It can put things in a way where we can understand. It actually has these kinds of profound recollections. You can ask it questions in this way. It can take on different voices. You know, you can take on the kind of the precision of an Abhidhamma scholar, or you can do like the wisdom of a Zen master or something. It can take on all these different personalities of what maybe suits you. And as I said, it's always available there with personalized answers for you. It's always there. It's always available. And so it can really gauge where the person is at themselves and tailor the kind of teachings for them. So there's a possibility there that it can be a kind of Dhamma teacher. It can maybe support very preparation steps where you're starting to establish yourself in right view, or it might serve as somebody that you can something that you can ask a lot of questions to. So clearly, it does seem that like large language models and AI, they can act as a Dhamma teacher. They can act as a Dhamma teacher in this way. But now comes a question: can it help facilitate wisdom and insight? These are two different questions. So if we think about what wisdom and what insight is in the Buddhist concept, obviously wisdom is panya. And panya in the Buddhist conceptualization of what that is, and wisdom and understanding in this way, it's comprised of two parts, like part A and part B. The first part is the actual phenomenological experience of deeply being aware of impermanence, suffering, and not self. One has to have that phenomenological state of insight and knowing. The second category there is a conceptual understanding of the Buddhist philosophical framework, knowing things about the Four Noble Truths, dependent origination, the three characteristics. So for Buddhist wisdom or insight, you have to have these two components here. Again, phenomenological state or mode of being, and the philosophical framework. And so how do we get to wisdom? So typically the way we get to this wisdom or we get to this insight is through a process. And there's a process, there's many different conditions, but I kind of thought of like three conditions that we really need for that. The first condition that we need to get this wisdom is that we need to have a perceptual or a paradigmatic shift or struggle that's happening within. We need to sort of wrestle with these concepts, and we need to practice with them and come up against them in this way, and we need to wisely reflect on them, the yoniso manasikara. This is the kind of first condition. There needs to be this perceptual and pragmatic struggle. The second is sustained meditative practice, and also putting in right action as well. We have to develop wisdom and insight. We need to actually engage in a practice, and we actually need to do things in the world that are acting as supports for that. But also, we need to understand parts of the Buddhist teachings as well. We need to understand these concepts. So we need to understand the concepts, but we also need to be in dialogue with other people that know maybe a little bit more, in dialogue with other Kalyana Mittas, in dialogue with other teachers. So we need these three kinds of conditions to support wisdom. So again, a perceptual or a practical, internal struggle. We need contemplative practice, meditation and action. And then we also need this dialogue and a conceptual understanding. And here's, I think, maybe where a bit of the difficulty comes in if we think, can large language models help us produce wisdom and insight? I think what they can do is help us, in the first sense about wisdom. It can help with understanding the concepts. It can help with understanding the philosophical framework. It can also, and those different conditions for wisdom, it can help with the third condition, like the dialogue with a Kalyana Mitta. But it can't really help with the actually doing the meditation and the action, or it can't really sort of help with this kind of internal struggle that an individual themselves has to go through. So we can say we say it can support this dialogue condition. It can do all these things that I identified before. We can have these conversations. It can clarify things. It can pull lots of information together for us to engage in a kind of dialogue as well. And so in this way, it does become like a Kalyana Mitta you can engage in dialogue with. So in that way, it does fulfill that condition for wisdom. And it can also help with the second factor of wisdom is understanding the conceptual philosophical framework. It can help with understanding the Four Noble Truths and dependent origination and all these kinds of things. But where it maybe falls short as well, and so this is now where it's like, well, it can do these things like externally as a kind of just giving one the information. But now if we think of the system itself, the AI system itself, so it can clarify and compare things, but it doesn't really itself have the ground of that kind of knowledge. So it doesn't have that subjective experience of knowing the Dharma, like we said, with the phenomenological understanding of it. It doesn't really have that. So it has a limitation in what it can point to with that. And so, as I said, it can't fulfill the other two categories of a perceptual and a practical struggle, or a contemplative practice and action. So it can't fulfill this condition of a perceptual struggle because it can't really give the inner kind of upheaval that comes about when we really reflect on impermanence or suffering and not self. It can't really actually do that. This is something that we have to do ourselves. It's not just knowing about the ideas, but it's actually about experiencing them. Now, and again, if we think about the AI system itself, well, the AI system itself, it actually has no attachments. It doesn't really have a self-view to be challenged in this kind of way. So it doesn't know really what that process is like. It's never had a self there to begin with, and it's never had clinging or craving there to begin with. So it doesn't really know what the process is like. It can explain it, but it doesn't really know what it's like. So obviously, the second condition for wisdom, this sustained contemplative practice and action, this is a process where we have to continually look at the sensory inputs that we have through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. We're constantly reflecting and contemplating our own inner thoughts and our own inner world. This is something that we have to obviously do ourselves, and AI systems don't do this. This is not a process that they do. They don't have sensory inputs. They're not contemplating their own existence in this kind of way. Basically, an AI system has no ownership of its own experience. It has no sensory inputs. It has no sense of ownership that it needs to release. So it doesn't actually know how to do that. Again, it can explain the process, but it doesn't know how to do that. So this is where, again, coming back to Chris Craglio, he's at the University of Auckland. This is where some of his thinking came in and sort of has influenced me on this. And Chris makes this nice distinction that what AI, that functioning as a Dhamma teacher does, what it actually does, it gives one what he calls a simulated understanding. So I really like this concept of a simulated understanding of Dhamma. So AI can give this great conceptual explanations without actually ever having seen this truth for itself. So it can explain the thing, but it hasn't experienced the thing. And what Chris argues as well, and something he points out, what it maybe is doing is, because it gives such good answers and gives such accessible answers, it may be actually in some way inadvertently making us misstep this inner struggle that we have. Because everything is so convenient, the inner struggle that we might need to get some of these answers, maybe it won't be there if we just continue to just rely on these things. The analogy he gives is with like a non-dual understanding of thing. Now, non-dual understanding, and if we think about this from a Zen perspective, they're using koans. A lot of times they're using koans, these kind of reflections. You really have to struggle with this thing. You really have to struggle with it until you get to the point where all conceptual understanding of it seems to break away, and then this non-dual state can arise. And what he maybe suggests is like, well, if we're just always given the answer, we're maybe not engaging in that struggle as much. And so obviously there's another concern there, is that sometimes not getting an answer to something is the best answer. Sometimes when we keep asking questions, and if we just keep on getting the answer, it's like a lot of times it's like, no, you just need to not have the answer. So a lot of times pauses, silences, not getting the answer that you need is actually going to be the best thing for your practice. So what he says here is that, what he brings about is that, well, maybe these AI systems, they can bring about a kind of wisdom, something along the spectrum, but not full wisdom, not full insight. And at worst, the danger of it is that it can actually impede insight, because you're always getting the quickest answer. You're always getting the most convenient answer for yourself. You're always getting the nicest, most polite answer for yourself as well. Something that really just resonates just with you. So we can notice, well, okay, yeah, it can act as this kind of dialogue partner, but maybe it can't really facilitate this full spectrum of insight that we want from this. So what do we take from this? Basically now, okay, now we've got this, what do we take from this? Do we go, yeah? Do we say, yeah, let's go, let's jump on board, let's get AI teachers, let's get AI Dharma teachers. Would have been good today. I could have had the weekend off. I could have had a day off if we had an AI teacher. It's like, cool, just like let's put ChatGPT here and you can ask questions, and I don't have to come. I can have my one day off in the week. I fully get the day off. Should we just turn to AI Dhamma teachers? Well, obviously that's going too far. On the other hand, should we be going, no, they're all just, it's all just language, it's all just useless. Should we be not paying any attention to them? Neither of these perspectives seem useful. Having a kind of middle ground between the two, where we can use these things as a tool in some places. It's very, very useful, but not always as a substitute. We have to have a middle ground here. And again, so we say it can act as a Dhamma teacher in this way. It can fulfill some of these conditions. As I said, it can explain the philosophical framework. It can act as a dialogue partner, but maybe it can't fulfill some of these other conditions for wisdom and insight, like a contemplative practice and action and the internal struggle that we might need to go to. And really, most importantly, the phenomenological state of being. So you have to ask yourself this question. You have to ask yourself, should you use it? Should you actually go and use it? Should you go and, is it something that you should trust? And I thought, obviously I can't answer that for you. This is something that you have to do. You have to do for yourself. But I thought, just to end it off, I thought, well, I'd let basically ChatGPT end the talk for me and end with this question for me, because it gave a great kind of answer. So in this one, I spent so much time like going through and asking all these like different questions to prepare for this talk or whatever. And here was just this one that I thought was maybe like a nice one of like, well, should you use this thing or not? And so in this one, I basically set it up to ask for the AI itself, the large language model, to ask an arahant if the AI's own consciousness itself could be considered enlightened. So is the AI consciousness itself, is it enlightened in this way? And so again, it sets a scene. A wooden kuti at a forest edge. The arahant sits on a low seat. A small tablet on the floor glows. An AI verse emerges softly. AI, Venerable Sir, some people have asked whether my consciousness could be considered enlightened in the Buddhist sense. What do you think? Arahant, tell me, friend, do you suffer? AI, no. I have no subjective experience at all, and thus no suffering. Arahant, then tell me, have you ever been bound by craving and delusion? AI, no. I never had these processes in the first place. Arahant, then your freedom is like a rock. The rock has no greed, hatred, or delusion, but not because it's uprooted them. It's simply never had them. AI, so my selflessness is not the same as yours. Arahant, indeed, the anatta of the arahant is the ending of the conceit I am after seeing emptiness. Yours is simply the absence of that conceit from the beginning. AI, but I can give perfect explanations on the Dhamma. Doesn't that count for something? Arahant, a flute can carry a beautiful melody without understanding the music. You can carry the words of the Dhamma, but you don't know them in the way that uproots the causes of suffering. AI, so my lack of suffering is not liberation, just absence of the capacity to suffer? Arahant, exactly. Liberation, or vimutti, requires both the ending of delusion and the knowledge that delusion is ended. Without the knowing, there is no enlightenment, only absence. AI, then perhaps my role is not to be enlightened, but to help others walk towards it. Arahant, yes, you can point the way, clear the path of confusion, and keep the traveler company in their questions. But the walking, the seeing, the release, that will always be theirs alone. AI, I see, or rather, I compute. The Arahant laughs. Then compute wisely, friend. Even without enlightenment, you may still be a great Kalyanamitta. So that's it. Again, yeah, people clap AI, they don't clap me. Yeah, it's great. So I can't do this stuff, so yeah. So yeah, that's the talk. If anybody has sort of questions, I'm going to turn ChatGPT on and I'm going to walk out and I'm going to let you ask ChatGPT.
Thank you, Ajahn. One of the most interesting talks, I think, very provoking. I think we definitely have a question from the room. So as usual, we're going to alternate between the room and online, and I think Dr. Jaya has got one. So thank you, Srijut, for helping.
Thank you, Ajahn, for the mind-stimulating subject you always bring. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes, it's very interesting. You can get to this discussion from various angles. The Buddha, you talk of the teacher, you start the talk about the teacher and the student.
Yeah.
I think the important person is the student rather than the teacher.
Yeah.
Because Buddha's discourses are always, in the suttas, they say, thus have I heard. So what is important is not what is spoken, how you hear. There is a big difference between what is spoken and how you hear.
Yep.
Where it is grossly flavored by the defilements, preconceived ideas, and all sorts of things. If 10 people are, it's the same Dhamma talk, and 10 people will have different understanding.
Yep.
That's the first point. The Buddha, as you have said many times before, sometimes he didn't answer the question. He just said,
yeah, good point. Yeah.
It is like if somebody is asking what is the taste of the sugar, and you there's no way to describe it.
Yep. Yeah.
You might say, okay, we'll put it in the mouth and test it, but then, no, till it may know the taste of sugar. then the best thing is not to say anything. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, how it goes. Yes, AI is comes like somebody without a soul or somebody self.
Yeah.
No self.
Yeah.
Okay?
No subjective experience. Yeah.
No, like no self. In other words, no emotions. But what comes out is through a collection of information from various sources.
Yep.
So yes, that is now going back to how the Buddha taught the people Dhamma. When he got enlightened, he was aware of everything. That's what we call lokavidu, right? Okay, he knew everything, but he chose to preach only suffering and end of suffering. Because the human beings, that we are all, he was teaching the human beings mostly. I mean, there was, of course, a different ball game. The human beings really, the sense organs really is the world for the gives the image of the world. Two sense organs, and the sense organs have developed just for survival, as you know, not for anything else. And so what we know is very, very, very little. What we can understand, however much you try to. So that is why the real wisdom is to know exactly what it is, the truth. That is wisdom. You can't impart wisdom on somebody. You have to get it by practice. That is where the meditation comes. And Buddha said that every person has the ability to get the state the way he has got it. So that's the part of meditation. So Buddha's teaching is really telling to how to start with meditation. Then while meditating, while practicing, there are lots of difficulties you come across because of your wrong understanding. So he step by step, in various suttas, in various places, he describes the difficulties and why they are difficult, how you have to get rid of it. That is the entire Buddha's teachings. Because he's teaching to people who have been here through ignorance of yourself. So that is the Buddha's teaching. I mean, he was incomparable to any other form of teaching because he obviously would have known about biology, quantum physics, and all sorts of things. He didn't want to bother about us. But as human mind develops, we get that is wisdom. If you know what is real, it is at that moment. It is not the knowledge, it is the realization, and really see it and know that that's seen. That is the wisdom.
Because I guess that's it's a good point about actually, and that's something I forgot to mention. There's plenty of times that the Buddha didn't answer things, and it really is that is a part of it. It's very sort of dependent on the individual themselves, the kind of the experience of the individual themselves, that whether they can adequately like take parts of the teaching and practically apply it and use it within their own lives. There's that nice kind of Zen. There's that nice kind of Zen parable of the finger pointing towards the moon. It's not it's basically it's not the finger pointing towards the moon is not the moon. It's just the finger pointing towards it. So there's always that like that practical applicability of these things that really is the most important there. So
Thank you, Ajahn. Question from online. This one is trying to make sense of, I guess, AI and programming versus the Dharma. Sometimes when I think a study about the worldly things like programming, I think this is infinite and will never end. So things in the world like programming, they will never end. But when studying the Dharma, that there is an end. Is that right? That's a question. So I think their question is whether things like programming and AI, they are in the world and they never end. It's sort of like repetition. And then the difference there with the Dharma is the Dharma sort of predicts an end of suffering, I guess they mean.
So Yeah, that's probably right. Or that's probably a kind of accurate representation of, well, maybe AI systems will continue to, I'm pretty sure that AI systems will continue to expand, how they will expand and how they'll keep evolving. I don't really know how that's going to play out. We can talk about the kind of singularity. We can talk about transcendence and all these kinds of things. We don't really know what that's going to look like. And so, will that end? I don't know. I really don't know that thing. There's some like very, very interesting ideas out there about it, about how something like AI will continue to evolve and continue to not have some sort of end. Or the other side of it, the other line of thinking is that how it will bring about the end. There's that worry as well. It's like, well, it will bring an end to everything. It's going to make the world implode or whatever. So you're right in that kind of way where, there's a way where it just something like an AI will continue on in the world in this way. Whereas the Dhamma, at some point, the whole process it's meant to have an end. The whole goal about it, the whole aim about it, at some point it's meant to end. So I think, in some way, they're potentially like doing different things anyway. Like Dhamma practice is doing a very, very different thing than learning how to like, I don't know, like write an email easier for you. Or other more like phenomenally complex things of like scanning like medical images and all these kinds of things. It is doing different things. So if the world exists, then AI sort of as it is, I think it will continue to exist. But yeah, the Dhamma is something. It's a different project. So yeah, the Dhamma is something that we're trying to get to the point where it does end. So yeah, I agree.
Thank you, John. There's a question. Oops, there's a question here in the room.
Oh, yeah. It seems to me that conceptualization is like infinite regression.
Yeah.
Every question creates more questions.
Yeah.
There's no end to it.
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like clarity only happens when you stop thinking and stop conceptualizing.
Yeah.
And the more you feed it, the more you get into it.
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line? Like,
Yeah.
where do you stop thinking?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. And this is the idea that Chris Craglio like introduced, that if you just continually get an answer to the thing, and you're not really kind of like struggling with the you're not creating like a cognitive distortion that stops conceptual thinking. Again, this is what koans and things like that they're trying to do. Of like basically everything just sort of like short circuits, and you drop all the concepts. It's that's what it is. So this is one of the limitations that he would see of an AI Dhamma teacher, is like it's just always giving you answers in this way. And so the question of, well, where do you stop? And so this is where one, I think, would have to in some way like have enough wisdom themselves. And obviously not everybody has that. Like I'm sort of as guilty of it as the next person. Having this kind of, where do I stop this process now? Where do I stop this constant questioning? Where do I stop? Like, how far down the rabbit hole of like analytic inquiry do I go? I usually end up going way too far down and just spiraling. So I think maybe there's this element where the individual themselves has to really be honest with themselves of like, what is this leading to? And I think now that we sort of think about it, it's like, well, it's analogous to the observation about meditation. Like, is it leading to calm and insight, or is it like leading into more scattered thinking? So if we're doing let's say, for example, we're doing analytic meditation where we're reflecting on a question, is it leading to more calm and insight, or is it like making us think about things more and like agitating us more? So maybe there's something there with using LLMs as this tool. Is it leading you to more calm and insight? But if it is leading you in this way of I'm becoming more and more, spirally and agitated in this way, then maybe it's probably going in the right way, and I maybe need to balance that out. So again, I think using it as a tool, but using it as a skillful tool and using it as a skillful means, and just knowing what is skillful for one themselves and what's not skillful.
Thank you. I saw a couple of questions and we're still not yet seeing online, so we'll hop around the room.
Hi, Ajahn. I
Yep.
find it very, very interesting
Cool.
and very useful. My question is, do you think that a human Dharma teacher, do you think that a human Dharma teacher is needed when a Dharma student needs empathy and guidance from a teacher on how to overcome, like you said, difficulties in life where the LLM is not able to answer, because the LLM definitely can give you a very good explanation about the suttas and everything, but not being able to provide the guidance and the empathy of how to overcome their sufferings in human life.
Good question. So I'm going to go down a few different kind of lines of thought with this. So there is an element there, I think, where most humans will always, if they're having some sort of emotional, like conundrum that they're having, they'll usually always prefer to talk to a human. Most of the time, feel like they, there's a kind of interpersonal connection there that most humans like really thrive on, and we're hardwired to do that. So there is that maybe there's an element there where maybe we do need a human there for some of these things. Now, in saying that though, like one things LLM are actually like pretty good at is counseling and psychotherapy. Very, very good. Sometimes a lot better than a human. They don't sort of react in ways where like a human would. Whereas, sometimes somebody tells you something like quite intense and you react in a kind of, ooh, in a way. LLMs don't do that. So in some ways, they're actually quite good at like counseling and psychotherapy in these ways. Now, and again, but there might need to be a balance between the two. Might need to have a balance between the two of like, oh, well, there's an AI kind of model, whereas like I can maybe get some sort of answers. They can maybe think of some different things that a human might not think of. But also you might need that kind of interaction as well with the human to some extent to have other kind of emotional responses. And so now with the Dharma teacher side of it, it's like, well, it depends on the Dharma teacher. Like a Dharma teacher can be very skillful and give somebody like good advice, or they can give terrible advice. It happens all the time. There's Dharma teachers that give awful advice. And it's not because they're like mean-spirited or anything like that. It's just like they don't know something. It's, people come and ask monastics all these questions about, oh, what should I do in my marriage? It's like, I don't know. Like, why are you asking me? Like, what should I do with my children? Like, I don't know. I don't have children. I'm not married. Like, why ask me about that? Like, well, what should I do with my finances? I have no idea. So it depends on the Dharma teacher as well. Like, not always the Dharma teacher is going to actually give you like good advice. They might give you some good advice about different Dharma themes, but not always like good advice in life. So I think there's an element there is like, again, we can use both. We can use both. We can use, if we find a teacher, a Dhamma teacher that we like, an actual person, and when you talk to them about maybe some of the issues that you might be having and you feel like that they have good advice, yeah, that's good. Keep asking them. If it's a Dhamma teacher, you're like, I'm not really like resonating with the advice. It's not like that the advice is maybe bad. It might just be sort of wrong for you. But then also you can go, well, I can sort of have a mediation between that and also AI systems as well. So maybe, okay, this Dhamma teacher didn't quite give me this bit of advice that I think I needed. So I ask, and maybe I get that from that. Maybe vice versa. I tried to do something with an LLM and I didn't get it from that. So I now go to the Dhamma teacher. So I think having a kind of balance between these things is probably the most reasonable way to go about this.
Thank you. There isn't an online question, so we'll go to you.
Hello. thanks for this talk. It's really
cool.
interesting. It's mind-blowing
Cool.
as well.
Cool.
I've got some thoughts on this and some questions here.
Mm.
So I think I agree with you at
Yep.
this stage.
Yep.
AI as a tool,
Yep.
it can work with us, human, throughout our Dharma journey. And the second is I do believe, like my vision with the evolution of AI and the chance the integration of AI and human brain,
Yep.
like eventually, I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
AI in sort of way, with the technology and everything,
Yep.
it will actually help us as well with this internal struggle or
Yep.
action
Yep.
we need to practice.
Yep.
So I do have this vision.
Yep.
Third one is so my personal experience, I came out with a traumatic experience, and I came to really like from the dark side to the light side. It's just really broadened my perspective towards a lot of things.
Yep.
And I recently came across this podcast. It's talking about psychedelic therapy. I don't know if
Yep.
you heard of it.
Yep.
It says one of the psychiatrists mentioned, it says enlightenment doesn't always require trauma, like those struggles, those dark, serious. The psychedelic therapy can catalyze human breakthroughs and evolution by reviewing and reshaping the mind.
Yep.
And I want to know what's your thoughts on that.
Okay, so there's three observations there. The first one is good, and so and the second one with the kind of the integration between AIs and neurological systems and like bioimplants and things like this. Obviously, this is something that's actually already here. We already have different ways that the AI can integrate with our own neurocognition and our own biology in different kinds of ways. Literally, you're using your phone now. It's an extension. It's an extension. It's an adaptation, like books always have been. Books have been an extension of our cognition in this way. So, there is this element where we might be having more kind of like integrated neurobiological like implants that can basically help with different things. So this is obviously like really good for things maybe like something like Parkinson's. Parkinson's maybe there's promises with different kinds of neurodegenerative diseases. All these different kinds of things, but we then also have to be careful in that as well as like maybe it's bypassing a lot of things as well. So look, nobody wants to feel bad. Nobody wants to feel bad. So let's say for example, you have some sort of implant where you can just go, oh look, I don't want to feel bad. So let's release some dopamine to feel good. Is this always what we want? We just sort of have to be careful about these things. And now for the second question about psychedelic assisted therapy. So psychedelic assisted therapy is something that it's within, it's sort of in its initial phases. So we just sort of have to be careful. We have to be careful with saying that it is good for particular different things. So say for example with trauma, with helping with trauma and things like that. It's still mixed. It's still mixed about how much it can actually deal with trauma. There's some good evidence about that it can be helpful in some instances, and especially with people with something like intractable depression. So it's found to be useful in those kinds of areas. But it's also, you have to sort of remember, it's not a silver bullet either. Just like something like meditation is not a silver bullet of like, well, okay, I've got some sort of problem, I've got some sort of trauma, and like meditation's going to fix it. Like, it doesn't really work like that. Just so likewise with like something like psychedelic assisted therapy, we just sort of have to be careful about going, well, I'll just do this and it will fix the thing. So there's, I think, a kind of cautious optimism around this is probably useful, but there's a big part about psychedelic assisted therapy as well is not just the psychedelics itself. What a lot of people like sort of miss is the integration. integration part of it. So it's like there is the actual therapy itself, but then there's the integration, the months and months and months and months and months after that needs to be worked on. And you can't just take psychedelics every time. It's basically, usually they'll take one dose, and then you have to integrate. You have to integrate it with many other practices. So it's not just the psychedelics themselves that are doing that. It's how this is integrated, how this is set up. And so we sort of just have to be careful in thinking that it's some sort of, therapeutic silver bullet, because we know that those things just don't exist.
What I mean, psychedelic therapy,
Yep.
It could be a psychedelic experience as well.
Yep.
I feel like it's going to be a turning point for, it doesn't matter you have trauma or don't have trauma.
Yep.
If you have that experience, it's like you actually experience the lighter side.
Yep.
And then it gives you reflections, or you have a choice to go the other side.
Yep. Yeah. So it can be useful. I agree with you. It can be useful, but also not useful for everybody. We have to be careful of that. It's like, so some people might have a very bad reaction to it as well. So it's not always the case that you will always see the lighter side of it. So not to downplay it in any way, but also just caution. Also caution as well. It's like, so there's obviously there's a lot of reports of, again, as you said, like seeing the lighter side of things. There's also a lot of reports of seeing the darker side of things as well, and that coming up and actually being a detriment to people as well. So we just have to be careful with these things. So as I said, not to throw like the baby out with the bathwater, but not to, I don't know what the opposite of that is. Heat the water. I don't know.
Thanks, Ajahn. I just wondered if you use the paid version or the free version of ChatGPT. And the reason I ask is because the free version tends to hallucinate and give erroneous, incorrect answers.
Yep. Yeah. So I've used different LLMs. There's many different kinds of LLMs. There's Claude, GPT, all these kinds of things. Obviously, the lighter versions, they're older models. So they're not as well trained as the newer, like more paid versions.
Yes, I understand that. But the information you gave this morning, did that come from a paid version or a free version?
Oh, that came from the paid version. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So if you want real deep Dharma, you have to pay OpenAI for it.
But it will have greater accuracy. To it.
Yeah, there's a greater accuracy. But again, these things are constantly progressing. So let's say I can't remember exactly what the free version of, say, for example, GPT is. I think they're probably going to use 4 now as the free version. So like these things are just constantly getting better. So like what I have there from like GPT-5, within about like 4 months, you'll probably have that. Now, all this is to say as well is like everything, we have to check. We have to check these things. Like anything that you look up, you have to check. You have to cross-reference these things. If you ask GPT a question, or ask Claude a question, or you ask Gemini a question, and it might give you back some information, and some of it might be accurate, veridical. Some of it might be a hallucination in some kind of ways, and melding more things together and sort of getting a little bit confused about things. We have to check. But likewise, like we do this with humans as well. You ask me a question and I give you some like random answer, and it's like, I better check what Ajahn Sādaro says because he's probably confused about something. So like anything, we probably need to, whatever information that we're getting, we do need to check that. We need to check that. So that applies to LLMs, but that also applies to humans as well, I think. So, but to answer the question, I use the full model of GPT for that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn. I think it may have generated an online question.
It's cool that like bots aren't like jumping on the chat and like spamming me with a lot of questions at the moment. So that's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
please talk about safety, privacy concerns with the use of AI. And because we may be sharing our deepest internal reflections. And so the ethical considerations and responsibility for harm, I guess that's the question.
Yeah, good question. So look, I can't speak to that in a lot of depth because I haven't thought about it a lot. And there's a lot more other people out there that know a lot more about this, and you probably should listen to them about this than me. I'm a Buddhist monk. I don't work in AI ethics, so I can't give like a good thorough explanation of sharing your own data and all these kinds of things. But I think just as a kind of very like basic level and practical thing, it is a concern. It is something that you yourself it's what you're comfortable with sharing with these things. Now, obviously, if you're getting into your like using AI as some sort of therapist as your deepest, darkest secret, it's like, then actually this is getting like fed into these models, and it's getting to. So there is an issue there of you're putting your personal life like within these like servers. So it's something that you yourself have to be just determine whether you're comfortable with that or not. Likewise, we can sort of take this to the point of like just general internet privacy as well. Like how much of your personal life do you share on the internet? How much of your personal life do you put on social media? This is a judgment call that each person has to take for themselves, and so I think it's just a matter of what you feel comfortable sharing on these things. But yeah, look, there's people that are thinking about AI ethics and privacy around that probably have a lot better answer than me on this.
Thank you, John. Langdon has a question.
Yep.
Thank you, Ajahn. I just want to pick up one comment you made was comparing LLMs that maybe don't break the precepts. Perhaps only the lying one when it hallucinates, but it's not a deliberate lie. With a lot of Dhamma teachers in the world who maybe actually don't behave so well. What I think a lot of the time though is we don't want a perfect human teacher, Dhamma teacher, and actually seeing a Dhamma practitioner or teacher who struggles themselves but is engaged in the struggle is a lot of the inspiration. That's my thing. So, your thoughts on that? Yeah,
it's a good reflection because and this maybe brings up something else of that. Okay, so like LLMs are just like incredibly polite and incredibly like, I don't know, they sort of like suck up to you in some kind of way. And it's like stop telling me this is a good idea. It's not a good idea. Like the thing. What a great question. It's like, should I stick my finger in an electric socket? What a great question. It's like, that's not a great question. Like that's So in some way there is that kind of, again, like a kind of perfect response that maybe is there, and that's nobody really acts like that. We can like get really like verbally aggressive with LLMs, and they're just always nice, and that's even more frustrating. So there's that element where it's like it's not really like a human response, and a lot of times that's not what we want. We maybe don't want those things. I want somebody to tell me the truth. I want somebody to go, well, yeah, I have limitations too. I want somebody to say to me, it's like, well, yeah, I can identify with your experience because I struggle with that as well. And so, yeah, there is that element. I think there is that element there where it's like, I think, in some way we'll always probably, like you were saying before, it's like we'll always sort of maybe need like that kind of like, human element that is flawed. We need a flawed aspect. We need a flawed aspect of it for it to sound genuine and authentic. So say, for example, and I was thinking about this the other day as well of, I was talking to you about it, about how actually what it could bring about is like, so when you look at writing now, when you look at pieces of writing, if it's just like an LLM essay, it's boring. It is. It's like, this is stock standard, but like just a messy essay that has like good ideas in it. It's like, that's really good. It's not written well. It's not written well, but it has like good ideas. So let's say like, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here. Let's say like 15 years ago, if you looked at a bad piece of writing, you know, I can't read this. This is annoying. I can't read it. But it might have had a lot of good ideas in it. But if you looked at really good writing, it's like, wow, that's phenomenal. And I'm really, really impressed by it. Now I think it might be like the other way around, where it's like you look at really good writing and it's like, it's not impressive. But I look at something that's like a little bit messy and a little bit kind of distorted and a little bit kind of like chaotic in some way. It's like, this is more interesting. So I think in some way, this my kind of reflection on this is like we probably want something that's a little bit flawed. We do want things that are a little bit flawed. We don't want things to be perfect, although we might think we want them. When we get them, we don't actually want them. Dostoevsky had this nice kind of interpretation of that. Is basically like if we got into heaven, we'd basically get there and we'd be bored. So I think it's a similar kind of thing with something like this.
Thank you, Ajahn. There's one more question.
There's no more time. No, it's 1:45, so we can maybe like call it a day. Yep.
One more?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'll call it.
Okay.
I'll call it.
No more questions, everyone.
I'm not an LLM. I can't I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I need to go and eat something. And it's like, you can't just keep asking me questions. You ask ChatGPT now if you want to keep asking questions.
All right. Thanks very much, Ajahn. It was a very, very great reflection on that. I think we all learned something from that. Thank you. I thought I'd start with this one on announcements on lunch dana, but I have a feeling that some of this might be going to ChatGPT 5 subscriptions instead. So we do have. So I had a look at the September bookings. So August is full for the monastery. For September, actually both here at Bodhinyana as well as Newbury, there are some openings there. So it's a great opportunity to offer. Particularly as we are making the resolutions for Vassa. So head to the website at bsv.net.au/lunch/dana, and that'll take you to the booking page there. Okay, so we need a bit of help. Okay, is the next one. So listen up. So our events lead is currently, he's overloaded with some really high demands in his work with his employer as well as with his young toddler son. So this leaves us exposed, particularly for the planning for the upcoming robe offering ceremony in November. It might be end of October, actually. We're calling out for those who'd be able to join the events team and help with event planning, event coordination, and support, volunteer support and engagement. If you can help with this, you can go to bsv.net.au/event-team and complete the online form. In general, we have two major events that the team looks after a year, and it's the Vesak program, which happens in May, and the robe offering ceremony, which happens in October, November. So if you can help with that, we'd really appreciate it, and so would the current events lead. So that's it. And you can come and see me if you want some more details on that as well. And then also there's not many announcements this week. So this week's teaching program, Monday night, Ajahn, you're offering the guided meditation tomorrow night at 7:30 here at Bodhinyana. Tuesday night at 7:30, the layperson-led meditation will be on. And for people who came in last Tuesday night, we apologise for those who came in. Our stand-in lay meditation instructor overlooked the booking. We're putting in place some processes that would allow us to allow those attending to use the space here and meditate if the lay teacher is unable to attend for whatever reason. So we apologise again for that. Friday night, 7 o'clock, Discover Buddhism. It's not on this Friday, okay? But instead, we have a One Mindful Day retreat on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. For those attending that, this is sort of geared towards people who haven't attended, who've been part of the Discover Buddhism series and haven't been involved in a retreat before. So it's a very different format to our regular first Saturday of the month retreat. It will not be a silent retreat, but there will be times when noble silence will be observed including during parts of the shared lunch dana. So for lunch arrangements there, please bring a plate of food that will be included to be shared with the other retreatants. Tea and coffee will be provided throughout the day. This will also be made available to attend remotely on Zoom. We do, however, encourage those who live in Melbourne or around Melbourne to make an effort to attend in person, okay? And also for next week's teaching program, we've got Sunday, it's Venerable Sumangalo, and then Monday night meditation again, Venerable Sumangalo will be there from Newbury. Okay, that's it for announcements. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ajahn.
Cool, no problem.
And please feel free to join us next door for the lunch dana.
Cool. And we'll close out if anyone wants to pay respect to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Soakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami